Hello, and welcome to the Autistic Me Podcast. I am Christopher Scott White, speaking as the Autistic Me. Today, we are being joined all the way from France with Catherine Guimard. I hope I did say that correctly this time.
That's
I
fine.
got a thumbs up. Catherine Guimard is an autistic woman with 4 children. 2 are on the autism spectrum, and 2 have been diagnosed with what in France is called multi-dys. Her specialty is working as a neuroscience coach for women with Asperger's syndrome. So, Catherine, welcome to the Autistic Me.
Thank you, Christopher. It's a real pleasure to be here.
Let us begin with some background on you. When did you first decide that you should be diagnosed with autism or Asperger's?
Well, it's in fact very, very late in life. My son, my eldest son, was all the children have high IQ, so I just thought he was so highly intelligent that he was up there somewhere and a bit different, a genius, as it were. Now I know genius has a completely different meaning, but at the time, it was before the onslaught of internet here in France, and very difficult to get any sort of information. So I just put it down to that, really. And it wasn't until I had him diagnosed with his IQ, well, it wasn't diagnosed, it's, I don't know what the word is now, tested, I guess, that the woman who did the test said, well, I think your son might have Asperger's. And this was like a completely new word for me. And at the time, we were living in a really rural area of France where there was nothing. I was just trying to get information from, well, the internet. And it was, early 2000s, so it was really just touch and go. And we had a very bad bandwidth, and it was just, people thought I was obviously a bit nuts. As I say, in the little village, we're in a little rural village where there's nothing but tree cropping and farming. No animals or anything, just trees. And anyway, so I got a lot of information. So eventually when I came to Bordeaux, 2014 is when Felix got diagnosed. And that's when I thought, I did a bit of research for the women. Again, very hard to get any information. And that's when I decided that, I think, well, everyone's always told me, I just left a very violent marriage. So the poor kids did grow up in violence, which did not help any sort of autistic trait they might have, and exacerbated it, in fact. And so I had a psychologist at the time, psychologist, and we would do the EMDR, which is, again, very difficult for autistics to do because they can't follow the eyes. So she would then do tapping and stuff like that for the children. But it worked really well on me because I've always done sort of personal development work. And so I was, it was very easy for me to do any sort of movement on that. Anyway, so that's when we decided that, that was what I was. So Asperger's it is. So that was very interesting. But very difficult to get a diagnosis because they always tried and fobbed it off with something else. And because of my wise years at the time, I mean, I was over 50, right? So I think I knew myself pretty well. And there were just some certain traits that, I just knew, like, I'm constantly putting my foot in it. Again, today, I just went to ask, get new lipstick, and, one of my girls said, Mum, you could be a bit nicer to the woman. I said, oh, am I not being lovely? Because it's just the way I ask questions, or, I may be curt, or, so these certain traits that I knew were on the spectrum, and I literally had to fight for my diagnosis, which is pathetic. But, as it is, they don't give the diagnosis. Well, as years go on, maybe there's more and more people that recognize themselves, because we do have information on the internet. And they seem to be, giving it like a stamp of approval for something I don't know. And it's really hard to get, especially as a woman. Because my girl, who I know is completely autistic, well, she was just, totally depressed. So we're dealing with that right now. And it's, I did tell the psychiatrist what I thought of them at a particular point. But,
I believe that a lot of adults on the autism spectrum get diagnosed after one of their children, because we grew up in the 70s, sort of the 1980s, maybe for some college years, and we didn't have the awareness of mental health, of cognitive difference, neurodiversity. And so when our children are diagnosed because of improved healthcare, I think we start to look at ourselves, and maybe that is why so many of us over 50 are now looking back and saying, oh my gosh, I was a little different 30 years ago. I was different than my friends. I was different than what teachers expected. I know that for myself, it began with struggles in university. And they first did the diagnosis of ADHD, of learning disabilities. And so awareness comes later for us. And I do wonder, is it because our children get diagnosed and the children of friends get diagnosed that we then become aware of something that wasn't as obvious in the 1970s and 80s?
I'm totally in agreement with that. Obviously, a lot of parents, and I was talking to a woman the other day, her child just be diagnosed, and she has no idea that it might come from, I just said, well, it's genetic, hoping that, she realizes that it's either her or the father. But a lot of parents do obviously start thinking, well, hold on, I have these traits. Does that mean, obviously we know we were different, but my parents used to say to me when I was little, Catherine, can you come down from Planet Zebra now, please? And, pay attention to what we're doing. I've always sort of known that I was bizarre, weird, whatever you want to call it. I'm quite happy with that. Take me years to get to be happy with that, and a lot of work and a lot of effort on my part, obviously constantly working on myself. Because I'm fascinated with the brain and the human body, I mean, to me is like, wow. So I've always been fascinated with that, but I didn't want to be a doctor at the time. I still don't, because to me, a doctor just had people come and moan to him, and I thought that wasn't very interesting. I didn't know about psychology at the time, and Freud was definitely not my cup of tea. So I just went into chemistry, and and now everything is atoms and energies and waves and particles, and it's just it's a totally brilliant world. And I think I've worked hard enough to be able to be happy now, thank God. But it's like puzzle pieces all getting in together, and you're learning about things. And I've learned, I guess, mechanisms to protect myself. And I do, that I think is part of the high IQ faculty of my brain. Because, well, I discovered this when one of my daughters is highly dyslexic, and she did enough gymnastics in her brain because she was high IQ to be able to do this, and wasn't detected until, I don't know, she must have been about 10, 12, I forget now. But and I was dumbfounded at the all the gymnastics her brain must have done to sort of try and hide all this, that she couldn't write, she could write, but not as neatly. The French are very precise on the neatness of the writing, and it wasn't as neat as the calligraphy was completely and she would often get told off, but I could never I completely digress from the question. Sorry, that's one of my strong points. I could never one of the good things I found about being educated in England for myself was that my mother never sort of looked at my homework or put on my notes. She says, well, I pay very expensive school, so I don't have to do that. So I had that sort of mentality, right or wrong, which, I think the kids always came back with horrendous notes. When you got a 2 out of 20 from maths or whatever, you don't really want your parents standing there screaming at you. And I was there if they wanted help. Obviously, that's never the question. But I didn't believe in the French schooling system, so I found it very difficult to put any ounce of energy into helping them. But I was there, should they need it. And yeah.
Watching your children struggle through school made you more aware then of how you had been as a young woman and a student?
I don't really know. I sort of have these things where I don't know where I was. A lot of the time I'm saying, well, where was I all these years? So I can't. There'll be some moments where I'm completely there and I know things and I'll be really present in that memory. But a lot of the time when I was younger, I would see myself and I would be filming from up there. So it wasn't, I was never in my body, as it were. I was always sort of out of my body and just having fun. And I think when I got into my body, I had to be serious, I had to be scholarly and serious. And I just like to have fun. And I think people don't like people who are having fun. I could be walking down the street just in my head singing along or, whoop-de-doo. And you can just see people staring at you with all this animosity. How she, And so I just put myself in my bubble. And so, no, it was terrible to watch my children struggle. And I used to come back to France, obviously, because we had family and stuff in France. But and I said at the age of 10 or something, really young, that had I been in school in France, I would really not have got any further than there's a CAP, which is it's a branch off at 14. You go and be a baker or a plumber or, you go into manual work and you leave the sort of studies behind. And I always said that I wouldn't have been able to continue my further education at all had I been in France. So to put my children through that already was, I knew, not the right thing to be doing. For me, in my eyes, I don't judge anybody who does anything. This is my point of view. So I really try to help them as much as I could with other things.
Do you think you relate better to your children because you're also neurodiverse?
Yes, I do. I can see that there's a wall of differences. I don't know whether that's English or French, so I have this tendency to translate things between the father and I. I mean, he came out with this phrase again the other day. How, if you really try hard, you can. I mean, as my poor girl who's totally dyslexic, if you really try hard, you can, get that done with no spelling errors. And I'm like, I cringe, I cry, and I heard that myself, not from my parents so much, although maybe Dad might have said it once or twice, but, no matter how much I try and explain to him that it's not something that, the child does on purpose, and she works so hard, to try and produce a piece of written work that doesn't look like 3-year-olds just scrawled on the page. And to have your, one of your parents say that after all these years, I just, there's no empathy, there's no compassion. That's your child you're talking to. So, yeah, no.
There is a assumption about autistic and special needs students in general, the neurodiverse student, that effort will overcome everything. You just need to concentrate more. You just need to work harder. And then this carries into the workplace as well and life beyond. So I'm wondering how this affects the people you work with as a coach, and how this works, especially with women diagnosed with Asperger's, or in the US, high functioning autism. How does this constant blame on effort and on your personal responsibility come back to people? I can't imagine this does anything but tears down someone's will to work and will to succeed if they're constantly blamed for failures that are beyond their control.
It does. It also leaves them raw, if I may use that in a certain. They have no, then they become sort of hyper vigilant, and any sort of little thing will just send them very much in a lot of directions. I have only recently decided to coach, well, because of my late diagnosis and everything, but specifically Asperger's women, because of all the diagnosis errors we see. They're often fobbed off with bipolar, for God's sakes, which I have nothing against bipolar people, but if it's a misdiagnosis, it's pretty heavy to bear for that person, who thinks she's bipolar, and in fact she's just not being, looked at correctly. So, and it doesn't stop the questioning, because, they've got a diagnosis, these women, but they're not, it doesn't sort of settle, and then they can work on themselves. There's still this constant questionment. And so obviously not a lot of them are at work, because it's very difficult. And a lot of them who do work, they can work like, as maybe, well, we can concentrate for like 3 days on end, not eat, not sleep, not do anything, just, and then we just conk out, because we've done the work, we've done this, and we just need to recuperate, get our batteries back, and off we go. But the workplace doesn't work like that. You're in the middle of this amazing, thought idea process is going on in your head, and you're going to produce this, that, and the other, and it's like, oh, they're closing, they're shutting me out. What's happened? So a lot of the time is just to try and deal with reality, in inverted commas, because we do sort of tend to live in our own world. And as I say, yes, I've only just decided to coach purely and specifically women on the spectrum, because of this diagnosis area, and also the fact that I found this amazing system. It's called Positive Intelligence, and I'm getting certified, and it's the one and only coaching system I've actually loved enough or had enough results on me to get certified, and it's just opened up for certification. So I'm really glad I'm in the beginning, because and I'm still in the process of certification, but during this process, I realized I'm with 3 people. So we're a group of 3, and these people, know me. We're doing very deep, profound work. But the one brilliant thing about this system is it's like, if your brain is the hardware, this is just overriding neurological pathways and creating new ones. So you won't get rid of your saboteurs, what they call saboteurs. There's 10 of them. The hypervigilant, hyperachiever, stickler, controller, all these sort of persona types, and the judge. Obviously, he's the main character. You won't get rid of them, but you'll just see them coming like, oh, hi, I've been waiting for you now. If you don't mind, I'm just going to do this. And you could just slip into sage mode. So sage mode is how you were. That's the essential you, how you were as a child, carefree, inquisitively doing things like, oh, what's on this, and what's under the rock, and just, or if you need to be hyper focused, it gets you into that active mode or focus mode. And it's amazing, and it's on phone, it's an app, it's 3 exercises, 2 minutes a day, simple thing, so simple. And what happens is it just comes and overrides the software It's like a software upgrade. So you're not going into deep traumatic, what happened when I was 3 or 5. You don't have to go down those sort of rabbit holes, which are incredibly difficult and painful to do. I've done it, I can assure you. So you don't have to deal with all that. And you could just deal with getting better and getting on with it. So it was during this certification, I'm still ongoing, but during one of these things where I was having a complete meltdown in one of our pod meetings, and I was just, and I could see as much as they were trying, they weren't holding space for me because they didn't know how. These are not, and well, I think one of them is, maybe high IQ, but that's it. Sorry, it's not as neurodiverse as you can be, but anyway. And I just thought, this is it, Catherine. You have to help these women. And it just came to me, and I just thought, yes, I've really been specifically catering for that because, I have the tool, I think, which is revolutionary, and also because one of my girls was having one of these meltdowns, I said, okay, let's just do some exercises, simple exercises. So she was there, on the floor doing whatever she was doing, and I sat down next to her, and I just put on a 2-minute one. It was a 5-minute exercise, and we started doing it. Well, I was doing it, and she just, sat down, stopped, and was, doing whatever it was doing. Some of them is like, rub your fingers, together so that you can, at a certain pressure, so that you can just feel your digital imprints. You do that for 3 breaths or 1 minute or however long it is, I don't know. The other one is just feel your toes, can you count them? It's these things so that it gets you out of your mind and somewhere else. And within 5 minutes, she was laughing. She was actually laughing because I was doing a silly face with, you have to crinkle or whatever it might be. And I just thought, this is revolutionary. This really is revolutionary. And I've got to bring this to the world. So I'm on a mission. And then I find these poor women are just, you've got to have like 6 oven gloves to even just try and hold space for them and just hold them. And because, then can they trust you? Are they going to be, because they're not used to having someone who will understand what it's like to have a meltdown, or even if you just want to sit there and not say anything, that's fine. I'm okay with that. I'll just sit here with you and let you have that space. Or just want to cry or scream or dance, and it's very, very new to these women who are mothers, maybe they're leading teams, and they're finding out already that, well, there might be Asperger's, or, there might be this and there might be that, but I was always told I was this, and I've got to be quiet, or I'm timid, I'm shy, I've got to be more, whatever it is. They're never allowed to be themselves. I don't know what it's like for men either, so I'm not one of these feminists at all, but I do have more knowledge of the female, and it's just I'm just fascinated by how much damage has been done to these poor human beings, really, and they're trying to hold the family together, to bring it all, and there's no one to help them.
There is a distrust of therapy and therapeutic methodologies among the autistic community. Many of the autistic adults have negative experiences with therapy as children and teens. What do you say to the autistic individual who says, I don't want to undergo another form of abuse? So, how do you approach life coaching and explain it as this isn't those therapies that you had in the past, and it isn't going to be a negative emotional trauma?
Well, first off, I'd have really lots and lots of sessions just talking, trying to gain the person's trust, showing that I do understand where he's coming from, that I myself have been through maybe some of the same situations, that I do have 4 children, so, that I have a wide scope that possibly, could cater for that. I really try and make the person see that they have to trust themselves also, because, I can bring a horse to water, but I can't make it drink. I can see you're an alcoholic, but, I can tell you, unless you make the decision yourself, I can do nothing for you. And I'm not going to sit there and, ram it down your throat, as it were. So I would really try and maybe give articles, podcasts, just articles I've written, experiences I've had. I would try and get a deeper understanding into what happened in the therapies that the person had undergone, and what kind of treatment, because you hear all sorts of weird and wonderful things. And it is true, I would have to delve quite deep, because I tend to see the world through rose lenses, as everyone always tells me, oh, well, you live in utopia, but that's where I live, because I guess I try and, see the good in people, because I don't want to see the bad, because when I see the bad, then it releases the bad in me, and I've done that. I've been there, and I crawled my way out of that hole. It was just horrendous. So, yeah, I've been through hell, and I kept walking, and I found a hole, and I just got out. And I know it can be really terrible, but I know what's on the other side, and it's too wonderful to miss. If there's a chance, that I can help that person just see that, then that makes my day, and hopefully a ray of sunshine in their life. It's
Autistics are often the victims of bullying, physical and verbal abuse. But because of our social structure, which is at times misogynistic, certainly a patriarchy, autistic women often endure additional forms of abuse, including relationship abuse. And you mentioned that you yourself have some experience with this, and some of the Asperger's women that you interact with have likely undergone the same experiences. How do you address that with women, with young adults, with teens? How do we prepare my daughters, your daughters, the women around us to be both vigilant and self-protective, but also still find trust?
I think the first thing is that if you know you're Asperger's, you have the upper hand, because you have a knowledge of yourself that if you don't know you're Asperger's, you are blind. I didn't know I had Asperger's, so I didn't know, I've always been, I speak directly, I offend people without meaning to, and I'm constantly, obviously, embarrassing, or apparently my ex-husband or whatever it was. Now, he's a plumber, very, very good at his job and everything, not a problem. And I got the impression he liked. I don't know, but I was educated, and I continue to educate myself every day. There's not a day where I don't read a book, an article, or something. I mean, that's just, life, normal. But I guess at one particular point, maybe he was having a very bad day, and I said something that completely threw him off. I don't know what I said. So, if you know already that you are, on the spectrum, then that is an advantage, because you can forewarn the person, or give the person articles to read, or, and even though that still will be tough, it's never easy to hear certain things, because I have been on the receiving end also of my son, who's told me some horrendous stuff about me. You're like, okay, you digest it and off you go. But I'm neurodiverse, so I can maybe digest it differently. But I, like, for example, he said to me once, I didn't laugh when I heard this. I could assure you I was gobsmacked. He goes, "Oh, Mum, you completely missed your role of being a mother." And I was like, we're having tea or something, and that's just popped on the dinner table or whatever. It was like, and then I thought about it. I thought, well, yes, obviously, because I didn't know he was Asperger's or, autistic. I didn't know this. So, of course, all my methodology or anything I might have been doing was completely wrong. And it completely changed once I realised, because I couldn't ask him to do certain things like washing up, or I would, expect him to walk everywhere because walking is good for you, exercise. And one day we're walking along and I say, and we'd arrive somewhere and he'd be exhausted. And I was like, "Why are you so tired? We've only walked 15 minutes or whatever." It's like, "Mum, I have to calculate the angle, the trajectory of my leg for every part, every step I take." And I was like, "My God, what?" So from that day forward, I just drove him everywhere, right? So that he would have energy once we arrived. But so I guess, for these girls and women, you have to tell them that they do have an advantage, that they do know that is a huge advantage, and that there is awareness coming. And I read someone somewhere, I forget where it is, but he said that, he's trying to make education changed in England. Anyway, I think he's English. And he wants not to be autistic awareness, but autistic acceptance, because we are aware, but people don't accept us. Like you were saying earlier on that just try a little harder, you'll get there. No, we won't get there. It's completely different. So, and I do think, life will go that way. But you have to be aware, and you do have to be aware. And when you're not aware, a lot of the women and girls, unfortunately, are taken for these sort of joyride by, narcissistic people, because they are so vulnerable, and they're so loving and caring, and they just want the best. I can't speak for neurotypical, so please, I can only speak for women, neurodiverse women. So I don't wish to take anything away from. I'm not saying that other women are not caring or whatever, but we don't see when anybody is making fun of us, because we take things at face value. We don't understand sarcasm. All this is completely double Dutch to us. We're like, oh, well, why did he say that? Or what did he mean? No, we won't say that. It's just that was said, and we act upon that. So, I would definitely, if you know you are, then that is a huge advantage already.
In the French literature, autism is still described as of the self and cut off from the world. And yet you just mentioned extreme emotion, extreme empathy, that you are very attuned to your emotions. Do you find that is misunderstood by other people who discount autism and Asperger's as being disconnected from emotion, especially empathy and sympathy?
Totally. I know no more empathetic, caring people than Asperger's. Well, autistic people. I think they're very, very caring. They just don't know how to verbalize it to the neurotypicals, because it'll be blunt.
And that bluntness becomes misperceived.
Totally. You're blooming rude, get out. That sort of thing.
As a life coach, one of the things that is on your website is that you are also interested in helping people reconnect with spirituality. What does spirituality mean to you individually and as a woman, as an Asperger's woman?
Tough question. Okay, spirituality means to me, I've always, like I say, when I was younger, I would be watching from above as if I was a camera, and I was always watching like a film, my life. And as time went on, well, I just kept going out and out and out. So as far as I'm concerned, I lived a long time in outer space, and especially during those violent years. And we were married 27 years, and he was violent maybe the last 10, let's say. And, I take full responsibility. I don't point fingers or anything. It was my fault. That's another story, but I don't want to point fingers at all. But I think during that whole time, and a lot of times also when I look back on a memory, I'm like, well, where am I from 5 to 7? What am I doing? And if I don't have something, I'm quite blessed in my life that I move continents quite a lot. So it's something to mark an event. So I know that, for example, in 1970, we went to the States for 6 months. Okay. How old was I? So I have memories before and a little bit after, and then, and da-da-da-da-da. But a lot of the time I'm out in space. So I also see everything in atoms and vibrational fields. So to me, then spirituality is what frequency you're vibrating at. So that if you're sad, you won't be, vibrating as much as when you're happy. And when you're happy, you just laugh and giggle all the time. Like when you were little, you were happy because you weren't, normal children or childhood. You weren't, fobbed off with, as I say, it didn't matter if in our 1970s era, as you said, we would go for miles to go to the rugby field or whatever. Nobody bat an eyelid, we'd get on our bikes and off we'd go. That sort of carefree, you're vibrating really high because you're intrigued with life, you're dealing with it. And whether it be, drawing all the time and teaching yourself not to, pass the lines, or saying, well, today I'm going to draw, one paintbrush over the lines all the time, or, that to me is being spiritual. It's just know yourself so that you can vibrate at a really high frequency. But you have to go through a lot of shit before you get there, unfortunately.
When I was looking for volunteers to be on the podcast, it always becomes a struggle to find women, especially professional women, parents who want to disclose that they are autistic or have the Asperger's diagnosis. There is sort of a shame or a reticence to discuss what it is like to be an autistic mother, worker, caregiver. Why do you think women experience this extra burden with autism and are carrying around almost a guilt at being diagnosed?
Unfortunately, we do live in a society that, you have to, especially here in France anyway, you have to be a certain way, you have to look a certain way, you have to have the Chanel sunglasses, you have to, this is one of the reasons why I never fit in, because to me clothes are functional, they can be nice, and, that's great, but what's more important to me is, like, does the label itch on, is the label going to itch? Can I feel this fabric, or this sort of stuff, I have found that, whether you pay $5,000 for a shirt or 20 pence, that label will still itch. So, and so there's very much, a finger pointing and this fear of judgment that all women, unfortunately, well, I say all women, I don't know about non-neurodiverse women, but most women do have that. Very few women are happy in their own skin. We're too fat, too skinny, too old, not happy enough, So So all these things, and to oh my God, now I'm autistic, how can I, oh my goodness, and what are they going to say? And, and then nobody understands because you can try harder. You can, maybe the woman has discovered because her child was diagnosed, so she can see what society is doing for her child, and the look it's giving on the child. And these teachers who supposedly have the child's best interest at heart, and I just think we're used to carrying this guilt, shutting up about it, and which is wrong, obviously, totally wrong, because we shouldn't have to carry this. It's not something we can change. It's part of our DNA. It's not like we can do a bit more effort and put a bit of mascara on, off we go. It's something we work incredibly hard to get over, and it does take a lot of courage to say you're autistic, and it was only during that when I was having that meltdown in my pod, and I felt secure enough, and I'm working on this with this new program that is rewiring my brain. I can feel it. I'm doing things that never would I have done before. So I know I can push myself a little bit more every day. So I know all this is working, that I thought I have to do it, because if you don't, you're okay. You're on the up. You're happy. Things are going well for you. And it just reminded me how awful it was when I was, way down there on the energy level. And just, if I can help one woman in a lifetime, that's already enormous for me. And I hope to help many more, obviously. But I see the difference it made when I really understood for my own children. Don't ask him to do the washing up. It's mechanical activity. He can't do it. Simple. End of story. Teach him something different. What can I teach him? So I think women tend to think like that. So we're always last, especially if we're mothers. We just don't exist, in inverted commas. So it's very difficult to take care of ourselves. And before we can get to the point where we actually own up to it, it's a little bit further down the road, I think, down the path, for us to actually sit and own it for ourselves already, and then for our immediate family. And we keep going out and out, but I think sometimes it's easier to maybe tell strangers. I'm always talking to people in the bus stop, whatever, telling them the greatest story of my life, and I don't even know this person. I'm thinking, what am I telling this person? I don't know. But so yeah, sometimes it's easier to just do that, and at least it starts the process, because you have to practice telling people, and tell the person on the bus that you never see again.
So you are a proponent of self-disclosure, of saying, I am an Asperger's woman. This is part of my identity.
Yes.
This is who I am.
This is who I am. I do.
And that's very difficult for people to do with many things, not just autism.
Yes.
So you would encourage people to be truthful to themselves, as you said, know yourself.
Yes. But I am an extrovert, but I'm terrified inside all the time. But I've always been an extrovert, and I've always gone to help the little, lost soul at the party who's on his own, or I've always gone to help the underdog, I guess we used to call it in my day, because I'm not as scared to speak up about certain things, so I will always go and speak up to other people. But that, in a way, was a way also of not taking care of me, right? I didn't really exist. I was just speaking for the other person. But my other daughter, she's very, very shy. And, But she does say it because we're in a family of autistics. So it's, that's, I think, yeah, it's, you see, some people hate labels. But to me, labels saved all my children. The minute I could put a label on my child, I knew how to treat the child. I thought Felix was a genius because his IQ was up there or whatever. No, he was Asperger's, so that meant that, I couldn't make him walk. Or I could, obviously, but, it's easier for him if I drive. No washing up. Don't ask him to do, homework or stuff like that. Every child is specific. I'm not saying, because your child is Asperger's, don't let him, whatever. Every child is specific, but, all sorts of weird and wonderful things. And just let them be, and they'll come flourishing out. I mean, my latest little one, she's due to COVID, she stopped school. She just dropped out. She says, I can't do Zoom. I'm not doing Zoom, which is fine. Of course, it's fine now, but at the time I was like, going, my brain was a million miles an hour. I was trying desperately to pressure her into doing it and everything. I just said, stop it, Catherine, stop. If she's brave enough to say, I want out at 16, and because we are in an era, we don't know what jobs are like tomorrow. We don't. All this digital stuff is coming. We don't know what tomorrow's going to be made of. COVID's shown us enough of that. So, I just said fine. And since then, it's been a year now. She's just becoming happy. Because she really grew up in the violence. She was really, I would use her like, oh my God, you don't need to go to school today. You've got to tell me you're great, stay at home, And I didn't realise I was doing this. Obviously, it's with hindsight and all this. It was one day when I'm in her bedroom, I'm crouched and I'm holding the door handle so that he can't open the door. I don't know whether he sees me going into that bedroom anyway. And I suddenly thought, oh my God, Sally is in her bed. What are you doing? And I just turned around and I said, oh, la, 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 la. That's, these sort of moments of lucidity were coming to me because I was working so hard on myself. That's when you realise that, no, I got to get out, even though I had never worked. I mean, I'd temped here and there, got a couple of dollars and went around the world, came back. I mean, he was the bread earner. I had nothing. I was just the terrible housemaker, etc., etc., etc. And yet I knew I had to leave. So I just put all my energy, and this is where the spirituality comes, because I do believe in energy work. I put all my energy into manifesting this house. I had to get out of that village and into Bordeaux, and the kids had to go to this school, and And I worked so hard energetically for this. I would draw the house every day. I would live in it. I would see it. And I would, know exactly where it was. And then I had a blue front door, and lo and behold, and then I had 2 weeks. Oh my God. Anyway, that was, sorry, I digress. Sorry. But anyway, so, there are times when you just have to forget yourself and think of other people, and times when you have to think about yourself. So I'm coming out saying I'm autistic on that. It's not really for me, although I do feel liberated by saying it, obviously. That took a couple of weeks. But, and I don't see anyone. I'm at home, I have no friends, no social life. So I'm do Facebook Lives and stuff, and all the time I waddle away. I can natter about anything, but I don't actually have a fixed workplace where I have to face people all the time. Because I can't do that. But, and I understood, when I was diagnosed, I thought, oh, so that's why, because I could never understand why I couldn't. But I wasn't going down that, wasn't the problem. So, yeah, now I'm doing it because I want you to be able to do it, right? So I have to show the way.
You are highly educated. You love learning, and yet you struggled to work in a traditional workplace. You like this freedom that maybe the pandemic has revealed to more people, but you like being able to control your workspace.
Totally.
Do you think that that is an adaptation we should continue well after the pandemic?
Of course, I think, especially for, autistics, because then they can work, 3 days in a row without sleep, without anything, and then they can recuperate. And, you some days you just can't lift your pen. You don't know why. I just can't function today. I can't function. And other days you're like, everything's just flow, and you're just reeling out all these articles and this, and you're reading books, and it's like, wow. And I don't let anyone I have never let anyone take that away from me, because when I do obviously when I was temping, I remember once I went and I didn't even know how to turn on the computer because it was written in French, M-A, on the keyboard. It wasn't even on the, it was not even on the tool. I don't know how you call these in English, but anyway. And I got in early because I had some work I wanted to do. I couldn't do it. And it was always like that. Or send me to the photocopier. I mean, I can't be doing photocopying, And I would feel so stupid, so dumb. You can't even photocopy a document in 10 examples, and the photocopier does it, and it staples them even afterwards, And so people would just make fun of me and say, because I'd said something clever, not that I wanted to say anything clever, but obviously I'd had. They'd send me off and photocopy something, so I feel like just so horrible that I couldn't deal with myself, and so I just rather live off very little money, starve to death, or let Thierry be the bread earner and not have to deal with any of that. Don't get me wrong, I did all the accounts and everything like that. It was a doddle, really, comparative to, because I was at home raising my kids as I wanted to, and, as I saw fit in the hours that were accorded to me,
Looking at your plans for the future as you switch to working as a neuroscience coach for Asperger's women, this population, which is underserved, you are located in a physical location within France, but you are doing this online.
Yeah.
How will that work? Do people teleconference with you? Do they chat with you? How will this online life coaching work?
We Zoom most of the time.
Oh.
And I like to make people either there's a thing on where you can record things on your phone. What's it called? I forget. Oh, you just record voice bits and bobs.
Okay.
Just or to journal, but some people don't like to write, like my children. So I try to get them to, just record things, analyze feelings. I have obviously a particular way of doing things because I'm not traditional, and I just perceive things really fast about people, and so whereas before I was with entrepreneurs and people who wanted to leave their 9 to 5 and come online. So I was trying to train them to the transition. Well, I was training them in the transition. I would just see things so fast, and they couldn't get enough of it. If you see what I'm saying. So to me, working online I've always done that because I can't work with the French. I cannot. They don't know the word fail forwards, for example. That's too wet, but to them, they can't fail. Well, if you can't fail, you can't do anything, So that's an enigma to me. But anyway, so I've always worked with English people, so it had to be online because here I am based in France. And I have this workshop that I'm planning on bringing out also for helping family members of autistic children, generally, it's the parents and the immediate family, to help them better cater for themselves. Again, I'm very concentrated on if you are well, then you can best help the autistics around you or the neurodiverse. Because if you're frantically, running around trying to do things, worrying about, your own autism, worrying about this. What will hubby say? Did I get the dinner? You just can't function. So I'm very much in trying to raise the vibration, because when you raise the vibration, things are ease and flow. If it's not ease and flow, you just stop and let's find another way. And a lot of people, they won't sit still for, 5 minutes. Now, you can sit still and listen. I don't mind if you're doodling while you're, a lot of my people do doodle. I doodle when I'm trying to concentrate and someone's trying to tell me something. I like to doodle, or, however, my daughter has to have music very low, and I've seen that my children have their own coping mechanisms. And one of my girls, I would say, look, can you not work at your desk? Do your homework at your desk? And she goes, Mum, I've been sitting 8 hours at a blooming desk. Can I just, lounge in my bed, with doing it in my bed? And I just thought, wow, that just blew my mind. And I thought, of course, darling, So it's online. I get you to do some work. Either you record things that you want me to do, or we can WhatsApp. So you can record on WhatsApp as well. There's all sorts of weird and wonderful ways of doing it. I think electroshocks are to be bad. I know I shouldn't laugh. I laugh because I find this terrible, and if I don't laugh, I'll cry. But I think there was a TV program saying it's still going on. This poor woman was, trying to raise the alarm, and that this is still going on in 20th century is a bit more dramatic than COVID, I think, in my eyes. But there we go.
So what you're trying to do is connect people to a better self-image. You want them to see what they're capable of doing, despite having been told they can't.
I think I'm an emotional being, and I do like people to like themselves. If you like yourself, then your self-image automatically is good, shines. You have to learn to love yourself. That to me is really difficult to do.
It concerns me because my daughters obviously look at classmates. They see themselves as different. They know something's different. They are aware that children aren't inviting them to as many birthday parties, or not in the last year, obviously, again, COVID, but they are aware that they don't have the social connections. They're aware that they're at the wiggle table. They're aware that they aren't always understood. And when they talk about themselves, it breaks my heart. They will say they don't like themselves sometimes. And I don't want to hear an 8-year-old or a 7-year-old say, I don't like myself. And I don't want that future for them.
Yeah, it's God, it's so tough when you're a parent. I have always been proud of my difference, because even when I was young, I could never fit in. I didn't know how, and because I am exuberant, I don't know why, but that's just innate and the way it is. So I'm just, a happy-go-lucky person. And people have tried to squash me, put me in boxes, and I've tried to comply, really, really. You can't imagine how unhappy I was during, a certain period of my life where I tried the Chanel glasses and all this. And I reached 50 and I just said, to hell with it. No, this is my time. And it's also when I just left my ex-husband. So it was, and I didn't have that choice. He was lounging around, moping in the house. I just left. I didn't have that luxury. I had to get up every day and show the kids that there was, things to be done, school to go, But I have always tried to show them that they should be proud of their differences. And it was very, very difficult, because when we left Paris and we moved to this new region of southwest France for the big house and, the space, just the space. I didn't realise that the rurality, can you say that? The rural part of it anyway, would have such an effect on the children. And my son really, really suffered. And for a whole year, a whole school year, he was beaten black and blue by a gang of girls. And I would scream at the teachers, and there were only 300 kids in this school. It's a little rural, school where they go around miles to try and pick children up. And I was just saying, there are 300 kids. Can you, Felix is black and blue. I want eyes on my son. Eyes on my son. And I was just being taken for, these freaking Parisians. Who do they think they are? And it is tough. And I don't know by what miracle, Felix, maybe a year or two after that, after he left the school, we went back for an open, or one of the brothers or sisters were doing something. And he went back, and I was like, well, we don't have to go, I can drop you off at home first, and because we were coming back from somewhere. He said, no, Mum, I want to show these people that I love them, regardless of what they did to me. And sometimes they outshine us and by gazillion to one, and I'm like, wow, I can only but hope this is my teaching, but I'm sure it's nothing to do with me, But I just felt so elated at that moment for him. Obviously proud mama, but so happy for him that he somehow managed to do that. So no matter how horrible it may be right now, support is needed. You have to tell them they're lovely, they're different, and be proud of their difference, because they have to carry that all their lives. And just, let their talents shine. And I would really not like the wiggle table.
Yeah, that's isolating in its own way, identifying children as too energetic, too kinetic. I can't imagine sitting still for 3 hours in a class. I cannot do it as a professor. I couldn't do it as a student. I think that what bothers me most is we punish children when they need to be free to move the most.
Yes.
If a child is trying to move, they're letting you know that they need to move. They're not trying to cause trouble. They're trying to communicate that I can't sit here anymore. But we don't listen to what people are trying to show us. We don't understand that how a child is acting is telling us something. All they'll do at school is say, well, this child can't sit still. This person's not taking notes. This person's not complying with what we think is normal. The emails I get from around the world aren't really that different. If it's someone in the UK, one of them, her child didn't like the school uniforms, something about the uniform. And as you mentioned, tags, both of my girls hate tags and clothes and itchy clothes. And, it can be just as simple as if the school would have recognized that, okay, this child is very sensitive to the clothing. Is there something we can allow that, I don't know, a scarf, a t-shirt underneath, something? Why does the child get punished for constantly fidgeting with the clothes? And it just doesn't seem to matter to me. When I look around at the colleagues I've met and the parents and the other autistics in all of these other nations, none of them are having a great time.
No.
None of them are being treated with respect in school. None of them are being accommodated without complaint in the workplace. None of them are being accepted. Sometimes we're tolerated. I don't want to be tolerated. I don't want people to tolerate my methods or my needs. I would like them to accept me, accept my children. I want to accept my children as they are. I don't want to just tolerate their difference.
I'm speechless because I don't know how to talk to these people because they do not understand. I mean, I was just saying earlier that my ex-husband, he still thinks that with a dictionary you can. And I remember when I first arrived in France, I didn't really speak very good French. I mean, I'd left France when I was little, come back on holiday, but it's not really the same vocabulary as when you're living there. I was, oh God, this is the French, okay? I was being headhunted because I was applying for these jobs that I thought, were okay with my chemistry degree or what have you. They were like, "Hey, no, this is an engineer. What are you applying for?" And some of them would call, during the interview, they said, "I had to take a look at who this jerk was." And I'm like, what? What do you mean? It's not compatible? And they would just call me so that they could literally laugh in my face. And how do you talk to people like that? Or, teachers, and one of my girls had a very lovely, I don't know what you call them in English, people who correct dyslexia. She was very, very good. And she did, she asked the teachers to come in a day early to have a 2-hour class or something. And in this 2-hour class, she did everything, wrong. Or she'd written on the blackboard so that you would read 2 lines left to right, and then the rest would go down, like a Chinese writing. And then this line would do like this. And the teacher's like, "Well, how do you expect us to read all that? I mean, we can't understand anything." Like, well, this is what it's like for dyslexic people. They can't follow your reasoning. They don't think like you. So this is what it's like. And the answer she would get back would be like, "Oh, this is ridiculous." And a lot of teachers got up and walked off. And she is a trained professional trying to show them what it's like. And again, we were very fortunate to be in a lead school here in Bordeaux for high IQ kids. So high IQ, a bit Asperger. They get up and they walk around, and some of them were allowed to read in class so they could listen to the teacher a bit better. And I remember I became president of the Parents Association, and so I was going around school with the headmistress of the little school, and we walked in, and I knew this kid. I'd just spoken to the dad at some sort of event or something, and I knew that the parents were in separation, right? And so the kid is completely distraught, and so he's not being really good. And the teacher had this new method of, she grabbed the kid by the arm, took him outside, where in the corridor she put a chair, plonked him on this chair, and went back to teaching in the class. And I was just witnessing this, and I was, trying not to cry in public, trying not to scream and do all sorts of weird and wonderful things. But I just looked at the director or headmistress, whatever, and I said, "What is going on here? What kind of teaching?" She says, "Well, she's doing the new class, and this is the new method." And I'm like, "I don't think this is a way we're going to do anything." And I just sat down, I spoke to the kid, and I said, "Look, I just tried to just comfort him and say, I understand you're having, you're uneasy here at school. It can't be easy sitting down all the time. Just trying to I don't know, maybe he was 6 or something, terrified kid. He's terrified at home. Obviously, you could see it was written all over him. And to do that is just violence to me. We're not in the 1950s anymore. Can we, how do we talk to these people who do not comprehend? I'm at a loss. I really am. And I will myself get violent. And although with this new program I'm now doing, I tend to be very eloquent and very calm, which is very surprising for me. But I cannot fathom that they do not understand. Cannot fathom that. I don't understand. What change job?
It's difficult as a parent and as an educator to see how the approaches used only serve to further isolate and further exacerbate the child's mental health condition or learning disability or cognitive difference. If you're going to take a child who feels rejected and then put them out in the hallway, you're just sending another signal of rejection. How does this? I don't know how this works, and I don't see it just at schools. I see it in workplaces. Oh, this person needs an accommodation. Well, okay, then we'll give him or her the desk furthest away from people. And, we won't even make an effort to be inclusive. We will shun the person, but meet all of the legal requirements. And so services like yours, where you're talking about coaching, where you're talking about supporting, I hate to say it, but often we are on our own as autistics, as parents. We are often our only advocates and the only advocates for our children in a world that they will tell you they want to accept introverts and they want to accept difference, that they want to celebrate us for what we can do. But the reality is they want a particular set of social skills.
Yeah.
And we don't fit those social skill norms. And so you can be, as you are a chemist, I have my collection of degrees, but for the most part, I'm still best off working on my own because the workplace isn't about what I can do. Too often, the workplace is about the social things I can't do, or at least don't do the way they expect.
Yeah, that is totally just, and I just I'm really wired and excited, and I'm trying to put all my energy in this because it has to change. It has to change, and we can't carry on like this. I've got 4 little ones who are, not able to work really because it's, and that is a bind. It's not they're not able. Of course they're able. Just give them the tools that they can use. Don't, or they have to do menial jobs, or it's really, really tough, and this is why I think I've been quite blessed, really, to be able to live the life I have. Although then I remember all the horrors of the marriage, but it was only at the end. I'll find whatever. But I just think how I've got to be able to do something. I've got to be able to do something. So I'm just reaching out, talking to people. Perhaps I should go to companies. Yeah, maybe. But I'm not very good in the workplace because it's got to change more than accepting autism. It's just, there's a lot right and there's a lot of good, obviously, that there is. But we are in the process of transforming all that, and transformation is on the ball. But we just hope that it'll go the right way and that people will be taken as individuals that we are. And it's not, it's nothing to do with social norms at all. And I think this will come about. I'm a firm believer that we are changing. At least that's the one good thing I can see, because for example, Felix, he got into one of the top coding schools, like no problem. But then he would only go for the hours he needed to go. If he needs 3 hours and he gets all the work done, then that's it. He doesn't need to go anymore. He's not going to sit there and, listen to you lecture or whatever. It's coding. It's proof, the result is there. And then he had to work with a partner. And he backed out. He said, got to drop out, Mum. And it was heartbreaking. But and after that, he locked himself away for years, for about 5 years. But luckily, thanks to, video games, he has always, since he's been about 17, been team leader, managed to host his own thing so that all his team can rally around. And I was just thinking, if we, take the skills he has and transcribe them into a sort of corporate level, people would be saying, "Oh my God, you're so brilliant! Look, you're team leader. You're getting the sales done. You're doing this. You're doing that." But because he's a geek, in inverted commas, a gamer, he's just locked up in his room, eating crisps and drinking Coke. I mean, which is complete rubbish. I mean, again, it's another thing that people don't realise is that to play chess, I think there was this talk about this. AI has beaten a chess player and now a Go player, because chess, I think, is 120 moves. So AI to code is 10 to the power of 120. Go, I think, is 85 to, no, well, it's 230 moves, so 10 to the power of 230 or something. But the gamer who's playing the most simple game, he's got 400 moves, 85 times, so it's 85 times 400 to the power of whatever. They, and children playing these games, their brain is completely different. And we expect them to sit in class and they get home, they got Google. What did you say, teacher? I didn't believe. And I'm Googling you and you're wrong. And they, so teaching does have to change. Corporate will have to change, because one benefit of COVID is people are realising how nice it is to be at home. And I don't have to be stuck in traffic 3 hours a day. No, thank you. I get more done. I can do my Zoom calls in my PJs, although that's really a myth. So that is all changing. And we have to be on the bandwagon. We have to be on the bandwagon to make our voice heard, to make people realise that, we're here also. We're brilliant minds. Whether it's, your daughter apparently does drawings that, are real to life. I mean, I just wanted to look. I was going to write you, give me some drawings, but I thought, no, let's be quiet. But she's 8. She knows this.
Yeah.
So please don't expect her to sit. She has no time wasting at school. She should be plopped in art school, or if that's her gift, if that's what she likes to do, and be praised for that. That's amazing.
Yeah, and unfortunately, what she loves to do is hands-on. She is, and you mentioned that you yourself like to be hands-on. You like to be out doing things, making things. And for her, learning is about moving the pencil, moving the paintbrush. It's not about reading about it in a book. It is about doing it. And so she's a very hands-on learner. We have a huge craft cabinet. It's called a dream box. When you open it up, it's just tons of shelves of mommy's crafting stuff. And that's what she likes to do. She likes to craft with, she likes to paint with me. She likes to paint with mom. She likes to watch, my wife will be doing cross stitch or sewing, and she wants to watch that. She wants to see things being made. She doesn't want to just read them or see a slideshow or something on in the classroom on the whiteboard. She wants to do it. And then she's very frustrated if she's not doing. And the younger one, who she's chosen the name Anne for the purposes of the podcast. Little Anne is a sprite. She's moving. She is running. She doesn't know she doesn't know how to hold still. But she learns while she moves. She'll be on her little trampoline bouncing, doing her math aloud, doing her words aloud, but she'll be on a trampoline doing it. And so this notion that she should be sitting in a desk trying to please a teacher isn't going to happen. And they're both very bad at eye contact. They will both be shooting their eyes all over the place, looking anywhere but the teacher. Again, they're listening. They're not ignoring, but they are not good at. I'm trying to think here. The acronym used in the United States is SLANT, and I obviously don't remember what it means, but it's something about sitting straight, paying attention, leaning forward. So it's all of these things that are what they call active listening.
Mm-mm.
And yet really for my daughters, that active listening pose shuts them down to listening.
Yeah.
Because they spend all their energy trying to sit still, trying to lean forward, trying to keep their eyes focused. So trying to do all of the things that the teachers associate with active listening actually shuts down listening for my daughters,
Mm-hmm.
who are listening just fine if they're bouncing on a trampoline, drawing a picture, or moving about. But because you've told them to sit still, they're investing all that energy on sitting still and none of that energy on listening. So it's this great irony of, well, they look like they're listening. Well, yeah, now that they look like they're listening, they're not going to remember a thing you just said.
No, and while I was listening, I did remember that I found out the best way to, so the teacher would ignore me was I would sit at the very front, crinkle my eyes, and just stare at something close to the teacher, and then I would go off into my own little world, and because I couldn't sit still either, but I found that was the easiest thing. And then when we had to take notes, she would dictate. Yeah, they would all dictate. And I could never keep up because I'd often think of something else. Oh, look, the bird. Can we hear the bird? Or whatever it was. But nightmare. So, yeah. No, I just think that teachers have to get a grip with themselves, or bosses or co-workers, or we're not anyone is not more important than the other, but we don't get to exist. And, it's just, it does make my blood boil. It does, because, although I've managed for myself to find a way around and to do all this, and thank God for the online, because, otherwise, a lot of people be just desolate. But autistics, I think, have to. Online is like a drip for us, for survival, to just communicate maybe with the outside world without, on our terms as best we can. And I do have some friends of friends of friends, who are on medication, don't come out, don't do anything. But they're on Facebook occasionally, And I think, well, at least as long as there's a glimmer of hope, that they're posting, even if it's just a comment privately to someone, there's some hope that we can, maybe say the right word, or to get that smile on their face, or, because they're so loving, these people. They're so friendly, and so always a kind word. And I remember no one knew online, obviously, what was going on in my private life at the time. But I remember this one woman, she would always just, I don't know, it was as if she could feel when I was down. She would just send me that, little emoji or little something. And it was when I sort of came out and I became my bouncy self again, I sort of reached out and said, oh, so blah, blah, blah. And I found out that, she's on medication, she's da-da-da-da-da. And I'm like, oh. But she was always so spot on. So I'm trying, obviously, to reach out and help her, but I'm here. She knows. So I now, give her lots of emojis and stuff. So I'm just hoping that, people will still connect somehow, because we are human beings. We do need to connect, even if we're, autistic in our own little ways. I can connect with you for an hour, and then I need 10 hours nap time or whatever it might be. It doesn't matter. But I think society should cater for that, and not with a minimum wage either, but allow us to develop our crafts. Like, your kids just sound amazing. I mean, just drawing like that must be wow. And yet she can't.
Can't do well in school because she can't sit still. And that's what she'll be judged for by teachers. Teachers will judge that she couldn't sit still, not that she had talent.
Yeah.
That's my fear.
Well, yeah, you can't have that fear, because then you'll portray it on your child already. So it's like the rider, when he's scared on a horse, can absolutely not allow to be scared, because the horse will feel it, and then the horse will bolt or run or do whatever. So I guess that's also where I learned to channel some feelings. Funnily enough, thank you for that. I always remain positive, and drives everyone nuts, because they think, oh, for God's sakes, it'll never happen. I don't care. That's how I want to see it. So imagine that there's going to be a school where she can just draw, and no matter what age she gets in, because she's so talented, and it doesn't matter if she, doesn't sit still, as long as, the work is done by Friday, or, and she hands it in on the Tuesday, and she's free the rest of the time, or, to then learn about maths, or maybe chemistry for the, chemicals in the paints, and how the pressure, and there are thousands of ways you can learn all sorts of things. So we've got to stop this ABC methodology. It's got to change.
I frequently look at the art and explain to her that there's math involved, there's chemistry involved, obviously color theory. So you get into some things like that. We have been watching some French and British history productions on art. So she's seeing all of these shows on streaming services that are from all over the world. And I want her to understand that these were scientists who were the early impressionists. They were inventors and creators of so many things, whether it was trying to develop the right shade of blue, or something as impressive to me now as the portable easel. So they could go and take their work on the train and go out into the country. Well, someone had to invent an easel that could fold up, hold the paints, and get you out there. So they had to become inventors, and they had to be scientists. Several of them used camera obscura to do some of the great classical paintings. They had to understand mirrors and optics, because they would collect the image and then trace it on the paper, which very few people know is that some of those great painters also were sort of cheating. They were using mirrors and lenses to trace.
Wow.
And so I'm trying to teach all of this wonderful science and other subjects by using art, because that's her passion. And I don't understand why teachers can't do the same. I don't see why you can't say, okay, this child is interested in animals. Well, we can talk about math, and we can talk about history using animals, or we can talk about it using, art for all of them, or whatever thematic interest, that special interest that child has, can be used for everything. You said your son is interested in computers and coding, but obviously you can explain how music is math and code, because some great music is being done digitally. And I put it on our system that we are not willing to show that every subject is interconnected. Every topic somehow interconnects. We are all interconnected, and so are all of the things we must do and learn. But instead, let's have an hour of math. Pause. Let's have an hour of literature. Let's have an hour of French. Let's have an hour. That is not how our brains work. At least not mine. Mine has never worked that way. It's debatable whether my mind has ever worked, but yeah, I love looking for things that are connected, that are unexpected connections. I don't want to sit there for an hour diagramming sentences in Spanish or French. I want to be speaking Spanish or French. I want to be doing.
Yeah.
And I think that's what my daughter is. She wants to be doing.
Well, yeah, because a lot of the kids, they leave school at 18. They still can't speak English here in France. And they've been doing English since they were, I don't know, 10, whatever. I forget the age, but it's ridiculous. And they all say it's not the way to do things. But every time someone tries to change something, it doesn't happen. And I think, as I was saying, in this lovely school we had for high IQ kids where the kids were, it was going really well. And one of the new projects the headmaster had put in place was just, you had, it was a bit like going back to kindergarten where you had one teacher with a topic, and then the maths teacher would come and do, maths within this topic. And I just thought that was so wild. But he got ousted because it was, I don't know, too revolutionary. They couldn't deal with it, or, the class was unrowdy, couldn't control it. But the class, at the end of the year, got the results and were passing the same exams as the other kids, so it was doing its, the maths was learnt to that syllabus, and the history was done, and they did a whole amazing project on Greece or something like that, and it was just fabulous. But obviously too avant-garde even for that school. But,
I have really enjoyed our time together. We have been talking with Catherine Guimard. She is a neuroscience life coach for Asperger's women. I'm going to include in the show notes links to your website and your email. I think that it's important for especially young women like my daughters, your children, to have role models, to know that we are out there and making our best route in life, our best paths forward. So I want to thank you for taking the time to do this, and I hope we get a chance to do it again when you can talk more about your specific approach to life coaching.
Great. Can't wait.
So
thank
you. You're looking forward to doing that, right? You're being
Yes.
I know it's midnight, right? It's midnight for you, and it's only 5 o'clock here in Texas.
It's midnight. Cinderella.
Well, I want to thank you for taking these very late night hours in France to speak with us on the Autistic Me. Thank you very much to Catherine Guimard.
Thank you, Christopher. Lovely.